This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Garrett. Funded in part by
TheStreet.com and Action Alerts Plus, where Jim Cramer and fellow portfolio manager Stephanie Link share their investment strategies, stock picks, and market insights. You can learn more at TheStreet.com/NBR.
Lucky 7. Stocks extend the holiday cheer with the Dow Industrials making it 7 straight days of gains, while it and the S&P hit fresh records.
Retail roundup. Christmas may be over, but many are hoping the buying will continue and extend what seems to be a strong holiday shopping season. So will the consumer keep the money flowing?
And the gift that keeps on giving. Our market monitor tonight says he has 3 stocks he thinks can get you 20% gains over the next 6 months. All that and more tonight on the Nightly Business Report for this Friday, December the 26th. And we bid you good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Griffith, in tonight for Tyler Matheson.
And I'm Susie Garrett. Good evening from me as well. Well, a strong finish to the week as Wall Street soared to new highs today. All 3 major averages were up for the second week in a row. The Dow pushed through the psychologically important 18,000 mark earlier this week and then just kept on going. Today, the Dow rose 23 points to 18,053, its 37th record this year. The Nasdaq added 33 points, and the S&P jumped 15 to 2088. That's its 52nd record this year. Both records for the Dow and the S&P. For the week, the Dow was up 1.4%, while the Nasdaq and S&P gained nearly 1%.
So you think all the Christmas traffic at the malls is over? Think again. Shopper Track predicts that today will end up being the second busiest shopping day of the year, with last Saturday being the busiest. All those returns, the gift cards, the drastically slashed after Christmas prices all factoring in. Josh Lipton braved the crowds for us tonight.
Have a good day. You too.
The season of giving might be over, but retailers hope the season of buying will continue.
That one is $59.99.
Today, shoppers were excited about taking advantage of all those big deals at the mall.
They said today is the cheapest.
You can get some good deals, not all, but for the most part.
When I see that the prices are down, I tend to take off and go places and buy stuff.
Analysts expect to see a lot of strength in the consumer as we head into the final holiday stretch, thanks to lower gas prices, a stronger labor market, and improved consumer confidence. The National Retail Federation forecasts holiday sales to jump 4% to $617 billion. So where were bargain hunters looking for deals today? Apparel sales always attract a lot of attention. Express, for example, is offering 50% off everything. Not to be outdone, Gap is offering up to 60% off. Consumers were also returning all those disappointing Christmas gifts today. Analysts say that's also potentially good news for retailers.
Oftentimes you'll get money back or credit, which you can use towards something else, and they may have forgotten or they may see a great promotion that they hadn't seen before the holidays, which they want to take advantage of.
Have a great one.
Analysts say they expect the American consumer to stay busy buying through the end of this year, with this December beating out last year's $149 billion sales number. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Josh Lipton in San Jose, California.
Overall, for this year, it seems shoppers have done more than their part to boost the economy and retailers' profits. The International Council of Shopping Centers says sales picked up as Christmas approached and gasoline prices continue to fall. And MasterCard Spending Pulse says compared to last year, retail sales grew 5.5% from Black Friday through Christmas Eve, and online sales jumped more than 8%. The figures include hotels and restaurants, but not auto sales. So let's bring in our guest now, Tom Blishock. He's Chief Retail Strategist at Strategy and PwC. Hi, Tom. Nice to have you with us on this day after Christmas.
Great to be with you, Susie.
All right, so after this very insane, crazy shopping season, how did things turn out from your perspective? I know you spent a lot of time in the stores. What stood out to you? What was different this season than seasons past?
This year has been a transformational season. Everything from when the season started in early October through what occurred on Thanksgiving evening to the redefinition of Black Friday to sort of a waning of Cyber Monday and, of course, Super Saturday But the thing that stood out most of all, was the move to mobile. A tremendous, tremendous movement to mobile this year.
And what does that do? I mean, you talk about, there used to be this ebb and flow in the retail shopping season from Black Friday through Cyber Monday and Super Saturday and so forth. That has really been diffused now by online shopping and mobile shopping. So take it to the future. What happens now?
Well, I think if we were to take it to 2015 and beyond, without question, mobile shopping, we call it web rooming, becomes the new way that people actually browse for products. What would be fair to say is that if we think this year was big in mobile shopping, next year will be explosive. It will be a year in which retailers must deal with the realities of omni-channel retailing.
Mm-hmm. And as you look at these next couple of days through the end of December, as you heard in our package, a lot of people are going and taking advantage of their gift cards and the big sales. I mean, how much more shopping and profits can retailers expect in these next few days?
You know, if you offer it cheap enough, they will buy. So let's expect that the shoppers will come to the stores to get that last-minute deal. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, it's fair to assume that 8% of the holiday season occurs after Christmas. So let's watch that build for the next few days, throughout next week.
And what about the convenience factor? If we are going to see more use of mobile technology and online, people don't have to go to the mall. They can shop at home. Does that bode well for retailers that are positioned for that? I mean, will we see stronger sales because people can shop whenever they want to?
I think there's a couple of points there. Stores will continue to provide a huge role in the holiday shopping period, as they will for the rest of the year. But what's important is that shoppers will actually use online or mobile to help them sift through the offers that they get to shop in a given season.
Tom, I know you can't name names of retailers, but generically, who were the winners and who were the losers?
Well, first and most importantly, the shopper was an unbelievable winner this year. But looking at various channels, department stores did a tremendous job in clothing this year. Mass merchants did a tremendous job in helping people select those home items or those houseware items. The toy retailers did a nice job in making America go back to playing games with children. It was a great year for all channels.
All right, well, that's a nice way to end the conversation. Thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate it. Tom Blishock from PwC.
Thank you.
Well, after all the furor over Sony Pictures' movie The Interview, that film finally opened on Christmas Day after all, just not as Sony had planned, of course. Sony says that the mostly smaller and art theaters which did show the film grossed more than $1 million Christmas Day. There was some online streaming as well, not tallied up yet. The original wide-open release was canceled, of course, after Sony was hacked, allegedly by North Korea. Kate Rogers puts it all together for us tonight.
From Los Angeles,
the freedom of speech is still alive,
to Washington, D.C.
It does feel like there's a larger principle here.
To New York City.
It was a hysterical movie.
Fans flocked to see The Interview after independent movie theaters rallied behind the Sony comedy, featuring a fictitious plot to assassinate North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. The film stars James Franco and Seth Rogen. Rogen, who also co-directed the movie, made a surprise appearance at one of the screenings in Los Angeles to thank fans for coming out.
We thought this might not happen at all.
The hype surrounding the hacking scandal translated into additional publicity, piquing the interest of moviegoers who otherwise may not have seen the movie.
Well, you know, I probably wouldn't have gone to see it, but the controversy got me interested.
In a statement, Sony President for Worldwide Distribution Rory Brewer thanked fans for their support and said, "Considering the incredibly challenging circumstances, we are extremely grateful to the people all over the country who came out to experience The Interview on the first day of its unconventional release." Brewer added the film grossed over $1 million in its limited release. In total, over 300 independent theaters rallied behind the film, deciding to release it. Sony also made the film available online through Google Play, YouTube, Xbox, and PlayStation.
You want us to kill the leader of North Korea?
Critics, however, were split on The Interview. So what did moviegoers have to say?
I can't believe a film like this has caused an international incident.
Yeah, I just really wanted to see it to just, you know, stick it to North Korea.
I think all around it was just a really good movie. It was entertaining, it was funny.
But despite the mixed reviews, box office numbers were still strong.
I think early numbers are suggesting it did about $1 million yesterday, which is a huge number for a film that's in just over about 300 theaters.
But Sony still has a long way to go to recoup the money it spent on both marketing and production for The Interview, which is at a reported $100 million just to break even. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rogers in New York City.
It apparently had nothing to do with the Sony hacking over The Interview, but there may have been another hack attack on Christmas. Gamers found it difficult to connect with both Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox networks yesterday. Xbox was mostly back up today, but Sony's PlayStation network remained out. A hacker group called Lizard Squad is claiming responsibility, and neither the company is commenting on the cause of the outages. But extra heavy use as new game users tried to hook up, along with Sony's own streaming of The Interview, could also have contributed to the problems. Bill?
Well, the Obama administration does believe that North Korea was responsible for the original Sony hacking, and this and other recent instances of digital extortion have made cybersecurity a major concern at the White House. Concerns are being driven not only by the unusually destructive nature of the attack on Sony, but by the migration of virtually everything to the internet. So the White House wants to find ways for the government that can protect itself, but also help vulnerable companies with their security upgrades. Joining us tonight from Washington is John Harwood. John, how is the administration responding to this mounting threat of cyber attacks? We hear about new ones every day now.
Well, first of all, Bill, you've got the same issue that arose after 9/11 when we woke up to a kind of security threat and said, there's all this information out there, but it's not well coordinated. Different government agencies, different investigators. Now you have that compounded by different sectors of the economy. So how does the government keep up with information, share that with the right people, get companies up to speed on what might be coming at them? That kind of information coordination is step number one.
You know, John, I've talked to a lot of CEOs about this, and most of them say they're doing everything possible that they can do. But if somebody wants to hack in, they can hack in. So what more can the government really do?
Well, there's legislation on the Hill, Susie, to try to have minimum standards for companies for cybersecurity. There's been a lot of criticism of Sony for having inadequate cybersecurity. The challenge is that while businesses want to be more secure, they're not sure they want government telling them to do that. There are also liability concerns that come if you set standards and then someone can sue a company for not having complied with those standards. So it's a complicated to try to solve the political puzzle and get both business and government on the same page, because obviously business likes protection. They don't all often like government regulation.
Very quickly, we all know that Washington's been paralyzed by gridlock the last several years. Is cybersecurity a gridlock issue, or can they get something done?
I actually think, Bill, they can get something done. The more new an issue, the more novel an issue is, when it doesn't have familiar partisan sides, the more promising it is to have some sort of resolution. And here you have a security threat that's typically a Republican issue. You've got a threat to Hollywood. That's a Democratic base constituency. And I think there's potential to come together in this new Congress.
John Harwood in Washington. Thanks, John. Have a good weekend.
You bet. You too.
And coming up on the program, it's nice that gas prices are low, but there's a downside to cheap oil. We'll tell you which states are losing out and which ones are benefiting the most from oil's slump.
Many minimum wage workers are going to get a post-holiday gift in the new year, especially if they live in Washington state. According to the Seattle Times, a cost of living escalator will push the minimum pay to $9.47 an hour come January 1st. That will be the highest in the nation. And in neighboring Oregon, the minimum wage will bump up to $9.25 an hour. That is the second highest in the country. 18 other states are hiking their minimum wages as well. Full-time Washington state workers will make a total of $312 more annually without overtime.
Lower gasoline prices are great for consumers, but hard on the oil and oil services companies, and not at all good for many states where budgets depend on high gas taxes. Scott Cohn joins us now from California. Scott, over to you.
Hi, Susie. First, the winners in this. States, just like you and me, pay less for their fuel. That will help to some degree. But the big potential windfall is if all the low gas prices mean more consumer spending. The states that rely heavily on sales taxes win. And those states are Washington State, Nevada, Florida, South Dakota, and Tennessee. The states that lose, though, are the oil states. Already a budget crisis in Alaska, which gets 90% of its state revenue from oil and gas taxes. They have a $3.5 billion budget hole. New Mexico gets about a fifth of its revenue from gas taxes. Texas gets about 8%, and a lot of question whether Texas can weather this oil shock any better than it weathered the one in the 1980s. And then there's also North Dakota, a growing oil state, of course, and Oklahoma.
You know, Scott, you just mentioned Texas and how it was devastated by the last oil shock. This was back in the 80s. How do you think it's going to play out this time? Will it be different?
There's a lot of debate about that. As I said, 8% of the state's revenue comes from oil and gas taxes. That's part of it. But so much of the economy, even though they've done so much to diversify in the last 30 years, it's still a big oil state, and the oil presence in Texas has only grown. So there's a lot of concern that if the crude oil prices stay low for a long time, it could start to ripple through that very big, very important economy.
Texas is not the only one. There are other oil states. What are they doing to respond to these low prices, especially when their budgets depend on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of states that are looking at some pretty serious budget cuts. Of course, I mentioned Alaska. This all came about 2 weeks into the administration of the new governor, Bill Walker, who's actually turned to the public for ideas about how to cut the budget. They're talking about big budget cuts in Louisiana, another oil state. The states are really looking at this now to try and get ahead of it, but this came on so fast, well into the new fiscal year, that in some cases their hands are tied.
Fascinating situation. Thank you so much, Scott. Scott Cohn reporting from California.
Well, Amazon saw a record increase in its Prime subscribers, giving shares a nice lift today. That's where we begin our market focus tonight. The online retailer said that 10 million new customers tried their Prime Focus for the holidays. Prime users obviously get unlimited free 2-day shipping for about $100 a year. They also get access to books, TV shows, and movies. But some of those new users could be taking advantage of Amazon's free 30-day trial of Prime. We'll know that in about a month. Still, shares were up about 2% to $309.09. GoPro contributed to Amazon's retail results. Its wearable equipment and accessories were the best-selling cameras on that site this holiday season. That, along with comments from Wedbush this week about the company's sales this season, have the shares on fire. Today, shares of GoPro were up more than 4% to $69.23. And Tesla has announced today that it is making some updates to its old Roadster model. That company says that a new battery, new tires, and other improvements will let the electric car travel about 400 miles on a single charge. As a result, shares were up about 2.5% today to $227.82.
Shares of Gilead Sciences moved higher after a rough start to the week. RBC Capital is suggesting that the drug maker could aggressively buy back up to $10 billion worth of its shares using cash generated from its blockbuster hepatitis C drug. Now, the analyst says the move would be a good use of cash and a way to signal confidence to investors amid uncertainty over drug prices. Well, investors seem to like the idea. Shares rose $2.50 to $93.79. Freeport-McMoRan was one of today's biggest gainers in the S&P 500. Investors got a chance to react to news that the natural resources company had a successful production test from a well in South Louisiana, and it plans to bring the well online next year. Shares rose more than 2.5% to $23.51. And reportedly, McGraw-Hill's Standard & Poor's unit is near a settlement with regulators over their investigation of how the company graded real estate bonds during the financial crisis. The settlement could involve a suspension of S&P from some rating deals and a fine of at least $60 million. That's according to reports. Shares of parent company McGraw-Hill fell today, down a fraction to $89.92.
Now to our Market Monitor guest, who has stock picks that he thinks could generate 20% returns just the first half of the new year. He is Ross Gerber, CEO and president of his own wealth management firm, Gerber Kawasaki. Ross, always good to see you, my friend. 20% returns. We've gone through 5 years of good returns here, the last 5 years. You think it's going to be harder to come by, so you're being very selective in the new year when you do your stock picking, aren't you?
Correct. Higher, it becomes more of what we call a stock picker's market because it gets harder and harder for the index as a whole to earn higher rates of return because the price-earnings ratio has gotten higher as the market's moved higher.
So, Ross, I'm sure our viewers are salivating, wanting to know what stocks you've chosen. They can get a 20% return over the next couple of months. You have Apple at the top of your list. Why do you like Apple at this price of $113, and how much higher is your target?
Well, going back to how we expect higher rates of return in individual stocks, Apple has all the characteristics of a company that we look for, not only because everybody, I'm sure the entire audience, understands why Apple's a great company because we all have their products, but with the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus doing way better than what analysts think, as well as the launch of the Apple Watch. Now, my opinion is that this will be a blockbuster product, and none of the analysts have also modeled in what the earnings will be for this Apple Watch in the first quarter, probably second quarter of the year. So between the blockbuster sales of the phone as well as new products and a continued just great Christmas season for Apple, the stock is very cheap relative to the market and should trade at a market multiple, which means that with higher earnings and higher, I would say, opinion of the company, we expect the shares to also move higher.
You like Disney. Bob Iger's already got this company on fire. The stock is setting records. You still think there's more to come?
Yeah, Iger's done such a good job. I mean, management is one of the key things. Going back to Apple as well, Tim Cook, great manager. Iger, amazing manager. Disney has everything going for it, too. Even Amazon reported today that the #1 selling doll in the world is this Elsa doll from Frozen. The continued, how would I say, synergy between the movies, the products, the theme parks, all of that coming together, as well as a pretty solid network group, although ABC is struggling a little bit. ESPN is very, very solid. So we expect a great year also because of Star Wars. Star Wars is going to be huge.
Can you squeeze in about 15 seconds why you like Taser at $26?
We need accountability in policing today. This is a huge issue in this country. Taser is the #1 maker of body cameras for police. It's being adapted by everybody, including the LAPD just recently. And I think this is a must for all police forces in the United States. And Taser will benefit greatly from this.
Ross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki. Thanks, Ross. Have a good weekend.
My pleasure. Thank you. You too.
Up next, a classic Coke just won't cut it anymore. Beverage makers are spending big bucks trying to rethink the things you might drink in the future.
Shares of Groupon rose today on a media report from the Korea Times that says that a unit of Goldman Sachs is considering acquiring a stake in Groupon's South Korea-based Ticket Monster business. Groupon is reportedly mulling a sale of at least 20% and up to more than half of its stake.
And that is Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Susie Garib. Have a great weekend.
I'm Bill Griffith. Do have a great weekend. We'll see you back here again on Monday.
Nightly Business Report has been brought to you in part by
TheStreet.com and Action Alerts Plus, where Jim Cramer and fellow portfolio manager Stephanie Link share their investment strategies, stock picks, and market insights. You can learn more at TheStreet.com/NBR.
I'm Susie Garrett with a Nightly Business Report news brief. A strong finish to the week as Wall Street hit new highs again today. All three major averages were up for the second week in a row. The Dow pushed through the psychologically important 18,000 mark earlier this week and just kept on going. The Dow was up 23 points today to 18,053. The Nasdaq rose 33, and the S&P jumped 15 points to 2088, both records for the Dow and S&P. MasterCard says retail sales grew 5.5% from Black Friday through Christmas Eve, and online sales jumped more than 8%. And Sony's controversial film, The Interview, made more than $1 million in its limited release, about 320 small theaters. The film was also streamed online, but no dollar tally just yet. Be sure to tune into Nightly Business Report right here on your public television station.